Good Wednesday evening, Joe Gillaway alongside Bill Bostic, and this is This and That, the podcast, episode number 9 already, Bill. How about that?
Time flies. That's all I can tell you, Joe.
Yeah, so do episodes.
Yep. Hey, I need some help before we get into this thing.
Okay.
I did a live broadcast that some people have saw on Monday night to promote this particular show because I think it's an important one, dealing with some very, very crucial local issues. And I made mention of the two guys that helped me out, Walter Lassiter and Biff Henderson. And when I went to the St. Thomas Roasters this morning, a sponsor and a great follower was giving me crap because he doesn't think these people are real.
You have a great follower?
Yeah, I do have one. I'm not going to reveal who it is. He knows who it is.
Okay.
He doesn't do anything weird to me, okay? He just follows me.
That's good. Yeah.
But I was really upset that he doesn't believe that Walt and Biff are real.
Well, Biff Henderson was the director of the Late Night with David Letterman.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't know that. He just sort of showed up on my doorstep and wanted some help to get back into the media. So that explains him. And then you met Walter Lassiter, but he was actually homeless, and I helped him get off the streets, and now I'm trying to rehab him so he's employable.
How did I meet Walter Lassiter?
You were over here, and he was cleaning some stuff up.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Don't you remember Walter?
Yes. Okay, so let's very quickly thank our sponsors here. How about the American Legion Post 272 on North Mountain Road, Rickabaw's Electric, Team PA, AAU Basketball, and Be a Hero, Hire a Hero. Thanks to these great businesses for their support. We really appreciate it. Okay, how about some upcoming, Bill? We are sourcing some shows here. Go ahead. Would I interrupt you?
No, the only one I worked on this evening was we're going to try and bring on 2 comics. So that's the only one I know. Oh,
one of them I have covered. His name is John Herr. Okay, can I tell you just a couple seconds about John Herr? Went to Central Dauphin High School, all Central Dauphin School District schools, which should be attractive to our viewers, most of our viewers. Penn State grad. Then he was a writer, a professional writer. And I'm going to drop a couple names here. He wrote for George Herbert Walker Bush, Tom Ridge, and Ariana Huffington. How about that trio of
can't ask for more than that.
They're kind of like world-class people there. And the reason we're going to have him on, though, is because he has been a stand-up comedian for a number of years, but he's really starting to take it more seriously and try to make a living out of it. And he's funny. He's really good. And not just because I know him and I think he's cool and he's my friend. He's a funny comedian. So we're going to have him on. He goes, his professional name is Hurricane because his last name's John Herr. So Herr, Hurricane. So yeah, as soon as you get your guy together, we'll get John and your guy together and we'll have a show with a couple stand-up comics. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me. The guy I have is John Bernheimer from Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, graduate of Northern High School. He's done a little bit of everything. And so hopefully John can make it. And then we are also looking at a show on local history. That's the other one we're working on.
We're working on that. We are currently, I like to use the word sourcing, Bill. We're currently sourcing guests for that. I think we have a couple already sourced or secured. And then the one thing I want to mention too, only because you have to kind of mention this on the air, we're looking for, we want to do a show every now and then, kind of a recurring show called You Do What? And that's going to be people who earn a living in kind of odd ways, outside the box kind of ways, not just 9 to 5 and, clock in and clock out. And they're not just accountants or doctors, or not that those aren't admirable occupations, but, I have a guy that he grows microgreens in his basement. Okay. Who does that around here, right in Lower Paxton Township? I got a young woman who I hope to get. She's a professional influencer. Okay. I mean, these are odd jobs, odd career paths. And so if everybody's out there, you do something that's kind of like, a little bit left of center and you're earning a living, paying your bills that way, let us know and we'll get you on the You Do What segment.
Hey, Joe, is there anyone watching live, by the way?
Is anybody watching live? Let me see here.
I was trying to get 10.
Yeah, we are. We're at 10.
We're at 10 already.
Yeah, man.
Oh
Yeah,
my
man.
gosh, great. A world record.
Wow. Come on, Bill. Don't let people
World
know.
record.
Don't let people know that. Okay, so we're at double digits, folks.
All right, well,
Okay?
let's bring our guests on.
Let's bring it. We didn't even tell people who. Okay, well, we'll tell them once we get them in, right?
No, we'll get just bring on Everett, and then we'll do one by one here.
Okay.
You're not going to be able, folks. You're not going to be able to see Everett. Everett, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, Everette Hamilton is going to be our first guest, and later on we're going to talk to interim township supervisor Alan McCormack, township supervisor, of course, in Lower Paxton, and wanted to bring Everett on because he heads up the Lower Paxton Township Republican Committee. So this is the committee on the Republican side that deals with candidates, elected candidates, or people seeking election within our township. And Everett, why don't you just tell the folks how long you've been involved with the committee and also how long you've been the chairman?
I've been involved with the committee for 10 years.
Okay.
I was only appointed chairman last May of 2024.
Okay, and I know you're a longtime resident of the township. I met you somewhere around 2013, maybe even a little before that, over at the coffee shop, St. Thomas Roasters. How long have you lived in the township?
I moved here in 1988.
Okay, so we're all longtime residents, and the reason why I wanted to bring you on the show is that during the front end of 2025, when all the what do you want to call it, disturbances or
Dysfunction is
dysfunction, yeah, when Lower Paxton Township government losing 4 out of the 5 supervisors, and then having to go through the process, sort of an arduous process of replacing them with people to fill in the rest of this year before the election. Everett, you were right in the middle of all that, weren't you?
Oh, yes.
So lots of things have been said, and we want to work through this just to make sure that people really understand how the political process works in Lower Paxton Township and probably most other bigger townships as well. When it came time to start to replace these supervisors, the first one was Robin Lindsay left late last. Well, I guess it was late last year, early this year. What process and what role does your committee have whenever that happens? Someone has to be replaced.
The way it works with the type 2, class 2 township is the fact that if a Republican or a Democrat, whichever the case might be, resigns or passes away, you're given first option of appointing someone to go onto the ballot, whether it be the primary election or the general election. Let me give you a little background on how we start. The Lower Paxton Township is 27 precincts, and each precinct elects a committee man and a committee woman.
Okay.
Now, each one of those persons has to gather a minimum of 10 signatures to get on the ballot, and they're elected the same as any other official. Now, we also have subcommittee members that are elected, or they're not elected, they're chosen by the committee.
Okay. So what you're saying is that most of the people in this committee are actually elected by the people, but then you have a few others that the committee goes out and selects, and you give them specific things to do.
Now that's subcommittees, yes.
Subcommittees, yes. Okay.
If someone resigns, we replace them for the duration of that period. 4-year terms is what we're elected for.
Okay.
Now, the subcommittee people can only vote if they have a proxy vote if the committee person is absent for whatever reason might be. And what we do, go ahead.
Yeah, do you allow members of the public to attend your meetings, or do you have to be a member or a subcommittee member to actually attend?
They can actually attend. We hold them in public venues.
Okay.
We hold them all at the township meeting, same place that the supervisors hold theirs. If it comes to a vote, we only allow committee members in the room. But other than that, someone could attend if they chose. Very seldom does that happen, but it's open to the public.
Okay, great.
Can I jump in here for a minute, Bill?
Sure, go ahead.
Everett, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Helping us get this kind of show off the ground, our ninth episode, and we're really excited about it. We're excited to have guys like you and to help us out. So let's just say I'm a registered Republican, and I have aspirations to become a township supervisor, and I'm qualified. You know, I care about the township. I care about the citizens, the taxpayers, and I think I'm going to make I could make a good supervisor. What would you ask of me next?
If you're a registered Republican and live in the township, you would send a letter of intent and a resume to the executive committee of the Republican committee. In turn, then we would turn around and ask you to show up for a meeting. We would interview you, and if we felt that you were a qualified candidate and had the best interest or qualified for certain positions, then we would either endorse you or not endorse you.
Okay.
Now, we do hold annual fundraising to help candidates out if they need assistance, and that's that's part of the endorsement process. If there's more than one person vying for an office, we can either endorse or just leave it an open primary.
Would you ever ask me before I could go, let's just say, take another step or go to the next level? Would you ever ask me for money personally?
I believe that any candidate should have some skin in the game. So we will ask you if you can raise money. Now, like I said, we'll help you out with our fundraisers, how we do that. But we do appreciate people that can come in with some money. Because you look at the cost involved in it, you're talking about yard signs, you're talking about mailers, you're talking about digital advertising, you're talking about commercials on TV. Now, these are not always a thing. Billboards, radio, some people hire consultants to help them out. And you're talking about a township of 55,000 people.
Right, understood.
You have to get your name out there. It requires a lot of media exposure.
Well, since we're talking about finances, I never got to that level. I didn't express interest, but I didn't get too far down the road. But given some of the comments that were made at public meetings, do you ask for specific amounts of money, or are you just saying, look, there's an expectation, you raise some dollars, and whatever it is, it is? I mean, do you ask for specific dollar amounts for a prospective township supervisor?
No, I do not.
Okay.
So if you think somebody's qualified, because there's people out there living paycheck to paycheck that might make one heck of a supervisor, right?
Oh, correct.
Could that be the case?
That could be the case.
Would that man or woman, would he or she find a way in without bringing their checkbook to the next meeting?
Yes, they could. Well, let me give you an example. We've got one gentleman who's a engineer, roads and bridges is his specialty. We wanted him on as a candidate because of that expertise. The township, one of the most important things about it is the roads and bridges. So we look at that. We've got another person who is a bond consultant who is an expert in that field. All the money raised for the township is usually done through bonds. So we look at those kind of things. And if somebody that doesn't have a lot of money but has expertise in some field that'll help the township, we'd be more than glad to interview them, put them on the ballot, and sponsor them.
Okay.
I also think I want you to verify what I think is the case when it comes to finances or anything like that. And that is that my understanding is that if it's a Democratic committee here in Lower Paxton Township or the Republican, they are not gatekeepers. In other words, they're not deciding who can run and who can't run. Because I think anyone can run. Isn't that right, Everett?
Anyone can run.
It's about the endorsement, correct? I don't mean to interrupt. You
don't have to have an endorsement. We just simply, the Republican Party, we endorse candidates we think are good for the township.
Right.
The Democratic Party does the same thing, but anyone can put their name in and run for office. You don't have to have a sponsor.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that I understood. Yeah, there's this notion out there in public, and I kind of feel that way, but I kind of understand if you peel a layer off what the truth is. But there's kind of this notion that it's a pay for play kind of scenario, Everett. Like if you don't show up with a certain amount of money, that you will not be backed, and then I think that kind of scares people off sometimes. It might have the energy, the interest, the energy, understanding of the job, that if they don't have, $15,000 or whatever it would take, they're going to just kind of stay away and not put their name in the hat.
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, do you know that's what people think out in the township?
I honestly don't know what the perception is,
Okay.
except for a small group that shows up at all the meetings, and that's when
Okay.
the accusation is thrown out.
Well, here's another thing that I think we really need to dive into for a little bit and get your viewpoint. And that is, I think some people, when they look at how things evolved here in Lower Paxton Township with these 4 supervisors that were replaced on an interim basis, and then looking ahead to the November election, my understanding is that all 4 positions, the committee, as you've described, Everett, did their process and endorsed 4 candidates. And also, then separately, I believe it's separate, the township supervisors also did a similar thing where they're interviewing people. In our case, the township supervisors decided to do it. Each supervisor did their interviews if they wanted to or not. So they went through their own process. And at the end, the supervisors selected a slate of people to be on as an interim basis is the same as the candidates that you endorsed to put on the ballot in the fall. So if people are looking at this and think there's some sort of collusion, what is the truth about that?
Well, so Mr. McCormack would be the first person who was selected.
Right.
He's been a member of the committee for the years. We know what he does. We thought he could do a good job, so we put him on the ballot. The other 4 sitting supervisors at that point appointed him to that position.
Right.
Now, that was with Norm Zumas when he resigned. Next up was Robin Lindsay. She resigned about a month later.
Okay.
We were also rather surprised at what happened, but we had another person who we thought was well qualified, so we put them on the ballot for the November election, but actually for the primary.
Okay.
The next 2, literally, we're going to be interviewing them on the 19th of this month to put them on the ballot. They were chosen outside of that process. They were chosen because they sent us resumes, and they also sent the township supervisors resumes, and that's where they were picked and voted on from that.
But is what I said correct, that the township has its process and then you separately have your process to do what you need to do?
Absolutely correct.
Okay. What I didn't know, what's new to me tonight, is that you're saying that the 2 supervisor spots that didn't appear on the primary ballot because the resignations took place too late, those
Correct.
2, you really haven't decided who you're going to put on the ballot as of this time. You still have some interviewing to do.
I have more interviewing to do. We put ads in the paper, and we also put ads on the Republican County Committee.
Okay.
On Facebook. For people interested, they can send me a resume at letter of intent.
Okay.
And we're going to hold a meeting on the 19th of the month
Okay.
and make a decision on who we're going to endorse to put onto the ballot at that point.
And what time does that meeting start on the 19th?
That'll be at 7 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, that's new to me, and I think that's important for the public to know. I mean, I thought this was a done deal, but I really appreciate you straightening, getting me on the right course here. The last thing I wanted to check with you on tonight is that, and maybe you can give me a little bit of a historical perspective. My thought is that Lower Paxton Township traditionally has been, as far as we look at the voters, dominated for the most part over the years by the Republican Party. Is that really how it's been up until recently?
It has been until recently. Now that I think the numbers are down to about less than 500 for the Democratic. They're ahead of us about 500 at this point.
Yeah, well, I checked with the county when I was considering, whenever I applied for the last spot, and what came back was in Lower Paxton Township, there were 16,000 and some odd number of Democrats, and the Republicans at the time in April was in the 15,000 range. It wasn't that much. It was pretty close, but I mean, there were more Democrats in Lower Paxton Township in April.
That's correct.
Okay. So what do you think's driving that process, Everett, from your viewpoint? This switch over?
I think basically what it's come down to is there's a lot of new people moving into Lower Paxton Township.
Okay.
We're at 55,000 residents now. And I know even in my own neighborhood, I've got neighbors from New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, you name it. The living conditions here are cheaper. A lot of people moving out of the more expensive northeastern cities are moving down here for the tax base is so much cheaper for their homes, and the schools are not as crowded. So we got a lot of new people moving in here. I don't think people, and plus we've got a lot of people coming from Nepal, the Bhutanese.
Coming from, what'd you say, the fall?
Nepal. Nepalese.
Oh, no, Nepal.
Nepalese.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Large Indian population, large Dominican Republic people moving in, Haitians. We've got people from all over the world moving in here. And it's traditionally been more democratic in those voting blocks. So I think that's the main reason.
Yeah, and I talked to someone, Everett. We were talking about the a large development, I think upwards to 1,000 homes east of the village of Lingelstown, coming in over the next few years, apparently. That a lot of people are moving in here because they're telecommuting. They're working from home, so they can pick out an area that, like Lower Paxton, that suits them, and that attracts people as well.
Well, I mean, I even have a son who works for a company out of Portland, Oregon, and lives in Susquehanna Township.
Okay.
So there are a large number of people who work from home, telecommuting.
Yeah, I do. So, so we've been talking to Everette Hamilton, chairman of the Lower Paxton Township Republican Committee. I think he's done a fine job of just laying out the facts so people know what's happening. I thought that was important to do that. So, any closing comments, Everett?
The only thing I'll say is I hope it's enough people. I think one of the problems we have in this whole country nowadays is a dearth of local publications, news media organizations. So I'm hoping that your organization will turn into very successful, and people will start hearing the facts,
right,
instead of rumors. I've noticed that we've had a lot of rumors at the township meetings. I don't blame people. They don't know. They don't have a source to find out the real facts. So I hope this works out for you.
Yeah, you're talking about Lingelstown Gazette. I'm probably on my 4th iteration of that. So hopefully this time I get some help from some sponsors and we can bring some people in. I already have 3 people that are contributing. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Hopefully after all these years, I've learned a thing or two. How about it, Joe?
I think you have, Bill.
Everett, thanks so much for coming on board. And I also want to compliment you on being even-tempered and not getting into the verbal jousting that went on in the early part of this year. I could see you on camera. Although you shook your head a few times, you really, really held your own. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Everett.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
And folks, we are. I just want to remind people, we're brought to you in part by Lingelstown American Legion Post 272, and the rest of our sponsors, Brickballs Electric, Team PA, and that's a AAU basketball team.
AAU
right?
basketball and training. Yep.
And then Be a Hero, Hire a Hero. So thanks to all those folks.
All right. Are we ready to bring in Mr. McCormack?
I think we are.
Let's bring him in. There he is, the very patient Alan McCormack. Welcome.
Bill, Joe, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's good to. I know you're a veteran, so you're displaying that Army veteran, right?
Yes, sir. Very proud of my service. Spent 24 years in the Army Reserve. I served in both Operation Urgent Fury, which was the foray we had in Grenada, and then I was given orders to go to Operation Desert Storm in 1991. So I served in that theater of war as well. I was a company commander. I was a company commander of a unit in Operation Desert Storm, and I'm very proud of the fact that our unit was awarded the Meritorious Unit Citation for the work that we did there. And I'm so proud of that because it is a unit award, not an individual award. I've gotten individual awards too, but to me, being the leader of a group of people and having them be recognized for their outstanding service is a compliment and a credit to them. And I'm proud to have been part of that group of people that were awarded the Meritorious Unit Citation.
Thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you. And just real quick, what kind of work did you do? Did your unit do for the Army?
I was commander of the 484th Service Company, which is a collection and classification unit. It's funny, when I went to Ordnance Officer School, they told us, that the whole CNC companies, they're very rare and you'll never see one. So, of course, that was the unit that I was appointed commander of.
Okay.
Collection and classification company is kind of a weird duck because it is partially part of the supply system. It's also part of the repair maintenance system.
Okay.
What we do is we're charged with collecting battle damaged equipment, both U.S. and foreign, bringing it back to a central location. And then if you ever heard them use the word triage, like in the old MASH TV show,
Right.
triage the patients to see who
Right.
Well, we would do the same kind of thing on military equipment. We would triage it. Some stuff would be too expensive to repair, so we'd send it out to the junkyard, and we ran the junkyard. Other equipment would be economically repairable, and we would write up the repairs that were needed, and then we would send that appropriate maintenance organization. Yeah. The other thing we did was provide float for the organization. What float is if you have equipment that, let's say that you have a Hummer, right? And a unit is deployed and their Hummer breaks down, you would do a swap of their broken one for one that's running, and that's called float in the military. And we would kept some of the spare vehicles available for people that need them immediately.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that happen in the background. You don't hear much about it. So again, thanks for that. And of course, we brought you in here tonight to talk about the Lower Paxton Township Fire Bureau.
Yes, sir.
And just to give people just a little bit of a background, I think the first thing we need to look at, Alan, is what is the problem? I mean, why did this idea of a fire bureau ever show up on the radar in Lower Paxton Township? So very quickly, could you give us a very concise overview of what caused this to even be an issue?
Yeah, it started with the previous board, and I will tell you that when Norm Zumas resigned back in December of last year, I was appointed to fill his spot on January 6th. And there were 4 other supervisors who had voted on this issue. Back in 2023, they hired a company called MRI Resources, which was Municipal Resources Incorporated, to do a study of our volunteer fire services, how to make certain that they were doing their job and what areas could be improved. We had the previous board at that time had hired a deputy fire chief to run whatever was going to happen with the Bureau of Fire. And he was brought on board, and they did this study to find out what needed to be done. Well, the MRI report says a multitude of things. And one of the things it pointed out was that the Board of Supervisors need to take an active role in setting the goals, objectives, and establishing a vision for what the new Bureau of Fire would look like.
Okay.
It also said in that report that that we were trying to support and extend the life of our volunteer fire companies. You have to understand that, 20 years ago, there was 300,000 volunteer firemen in the state of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And today there's 30,000. So decreasing of manpower in that magnitude, obviously there's going to be places where we don't necessarily have enough manpower to do the work. So there were certain times of day and certain days of the week when it was hard for us to meet the response times. There's a national fire code, and it has certain measurements in it as to whether you're a professional, that is a career firefighter, and you have firefighters sitting in the firehouse waiting to be called. Okay. And they have other measurements if you're a volunteer fire, recognizing that volunteer firemen have to come from homes and families and workplaces and those kind of things to get the fire apparatus out to fight the fire. But the NFPA 10 and the NFPA 20 codes dictate certain response times and a lot of different incremental. I don't want to bore you with all the details.
But how are we doing? How are we doing?
We're excellent. we have 3 fire companies, 33, which is Colonial Park, 34, which is Paxtonia, and 35, which is the north side, which is Lingelstown.
Okay.
So we're divided up into 3 quadrants, and people don't know this, but every quadrant of Lower Paxton Township is given a number associated with the fire company, and also what they call a box. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to think about it this way, every neighborhood has its own box for a fire. So if it's 3312, you know that in the 12 box, there's a fire in 33 Colonial Park territory.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, let me ask you this. I know that we're getting into the weeds a little bit with that kind of stuff, but the notion is, from listening, I watched the entire 2.5 hour session last month with the fire company leaders, but the notion coming out of that is that there's time periods where some of our firehouses are not manned at all and they're out of service, and this is so there's the idea that we have to fill in some of these things because there's too many times that's happening. Is that a fair assessment, or just how you view it?
Well, that's the accusation that's being hurled about. But the truth is, Bill, that we have mutual aid pacts with all of the surrounding areas for fires when we don't have people at stations. Okay. Right. And we supply mutual aid for nearby municipalities, and they provide aid to us when we have. So, obviously, a volunteer fire company, most of those people work during the day. So the daylight hours are the hours when there are, let us suggest, fewer firefighters available.
Right.
Because they're doing their normal daily routine. It started off with a unique program called the stipend program. Okay. Right. That was early in 2024. And what the stipend program was is it basically paid firefighters $10 an hour for a 4-hour period or an 8-hour period to be available in the firehouse. Okay. Okay. However, there was all kinds of rules and regulations about when you would get paid, when you wouldn't get paid. And even if you signed up for the stipend, if there wasn't at least a 3-man crew with a driver capable of driving the vehicle, even though you signed up for the stipend, you may not get paid the stipend. What that turned out to be, Bill, is that right now Lower Paxton Township has a 48% take rate, that is participation rate in the stipend program, where other municipalities like Upper Marion Township has in the last 3 months 92%, 96%, 98% participation in the take rate of
and that issue was bandied about at the meeting. There was a lot of discussion on that. You led them through to try and get their input on this stipend program. It seemed like the outcome was, in a lot of cases, they were saying they could tweak it. There's some things you could do. I know you're interested in finding that stuff out and seeing what the options are. But that we just don't have enough volunteers to have that program drive or get us to where we need to go. That's what I heard.
Can I interrupt before we get past this too much? You talked about the mutual aid,
right?
Which is assistance from outside of the township, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does that typically, on average, for the most part, meet appropriate response times?
Yes.
It does?
Yes.
Okay.
I will tell you that the response time for Lingelstown getting their fire trucks out the door is a longer period of time than Paxtonia or Colonial Park. And there are many factors, many reasons for that. And I won't bore your listeners with all those, but those are the things that the Board of Supervisors has to understand so that we can plan correctly the way forward. The past Board of Supervisors with their mass exodus and their resignations, maybe they had a plan for how to use the full-time career firefighters, but they did not leave that plan with us. Now, Deputy Fire Chief Graham has a plan, but his plan for 10 firefighters, for 10 career firefighters, gives us full-time coverage from 6 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. in the evening, Monday through Friday. Now, the sad thing about that is that a fire doesn't know what time it is nor what day it is. So a fire doesn't know if it's going to start at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So, what we, the Board of Supervisors, are trying to struggle with is how best to expend our funds to get the biggest level of protection for our communities.
Is that kind of what the holdup is, or maybe holdup is an inappropriate word? But that's where we're kind of not moving forward right now, correct?
There was another problem, Joe, and I want to be honest with you.
Because people want to know this. I'm asking basically for the citizenry in Lower Paxton Township.
And I appreciate your question because we want to be transparent rather than just a half a dozen people showing up to the meeting and complaining and yelling
Right.
and screaming. We want the public to know the truth. Okay. The truth is that when 10 career firefighters were approved last year, there was not a plan for how much we were going to pay them,
Okay.
what their benefits package was going to be, and what kind of retirement package they would get. You know, there's a big debate in the public today between a defined benefit versus a defined contribution plan. That's just one of the questions that hasn't been, retirement plan. That's just one of the many questions that wasn't answered. It wasn't asked, it wasn't.
On that point, isn't there a study going on to try and get some of
There
those
is.
things nailed down? Okay.
That's one of the things the new Board of Supervisors instituted this year was to make that study, to have that an expert come in and do that study so that not only can we recruit and attract the best people, but also pay them appropriately.
Absolutely.
So, we're not trying to delay anything. We're not trying to hurt anybody. Look, the volunteer fire companies in Lower Paxton Township have been putting out fires since the 1930s. And they're still doing an excellent job today. Yeah. And we have one of the highest, there's an organization that determines what your fire insurance rates will be.
Mm-hmm.
We have one of the highest grades possible by those people who evaluate our fire companies and charge us fire insurance rates because our volunteer fire companies do such an outstanding job in meeting those needs.
Yeah, let me supplement this in a little bit. I mean, I think within our township in the past, I've never seen the three fire companies work together like they did the other night at that meeting. They all seemed to be pretty much on the same page. They were cooperating with each other. There was just one team sitting there. And I think that's to be applauded that these volunteer companies are working in that way.
I absolutely agree with you, Bill. And I hate to interrupt, but let me ask this question.
Yeah.
Why weren't those three fire companies given the opportunity to come before the public and the board a year ago to have that very meeting?
Well, yeah. And what you're saying is you're doing the catch-up work that wasn't done by the past board.
I'm sorry. I'm not criticizing anybody.
No, I know.
I'm saying it wasn't done, and it needs to be done in order for us to get this right.
And the thing I think we really have to focus on in the moment, I think you touched on it, and that is that this notion that if there's a perfect storm, and let's say that two of the three volunteer fire companies, for whatever reason, are out of service, and then we have this third one sitting out there, and they're out on a call. We have no fire station available.
Out of service, Bill, meaning not properly
they're
manned?
They're not going to be called on by the town.
Because they're not manned. Is that what you mean by out of service?
Yeah, for whatever reason, they're not available to provide service at that point in time. They let the county dispatch know.
Why would that occur? Just for
one reason is because they don't have the staff, but the other, what's another reason, Alan?
That's the only one I can think of. That's why I'm asking.
They could be out on a parade, for example.
Okay, all right. That could.
So, to answer your question directly, it is a staffing issue. In order for a fire truck to leave the firehouse, there has to be three people on that truck, and one of those people has to be certified and qualified and licensed to drive the truck. Many people are licensed as firemen. Not every fireman is licensed to be what in effect is a CDL license, right? I mean, it's a license to drive a fire truck. It's not a CDL license. It's a different kind of license.
It's a heck of a piece of machinery. It really is.
Exactly. And not every fireman is qualified or tested or authorized to drive that truck. So you have to have at least three people on the truck. So, and here's where I give Public Safety Director Chief Kashiba and Deputy Fire Chief Graham absolute great kudos. Every morning, every day, these guys are on top of who's in what station and what stations are prepared to respond to a fire, which ones are not, and they will cross level. It's common. It's not unusual for a station to not have those three critical people, two firemen and a driver. And what Deputy Chief Graham does in conjunction with the chiefs, he may take two people from Paxtonia and send them over to Colonial Park so that they can move one of the, or vice versa. And that way we're guaranteed of having someone who will respond to a fire call. And sometimes it's a couple of someones. Sometimes it's Colonial Park and Lingelstown. Sometimes it's Paxtonian leads, or it's Paxtonian and Colonial Park. And they manage the assets and cross level them so that we get the maximum amount of vehicles available, teams available to go put out fires.
Yeah,
they do a terrific job.
We clearly have some great leadership at the township, but I always get messed up with the titles, but Mr. Kashiba and the other gentleman you're mentioning, that came through in that meeting last month very clearly.
Now,
But-
Alan,
but
for the viewers, I think we had Bill, a guest on that explained this, kind of cleared it up. It might have been Mr. Gottshaw, Bradley Gottshaw, the township manager. But these 10 paid firefighters, they would float, correct? Float between the three departments. Is that correct?
They would be managed by Deputy Fire Chief Graham. And yes, and here's the question that we the Board of Supervisors have. One, we don't know if 10 is the right number. Because
Okay.
while we have a plan to utilize 10, it wasn't necessarily germinated from the ground up as to why 10 was the right number. Okay. So what do we get for 10 career firefighters? We get 2 teams of 5 that will be placed somewhere so that they can move fire trucks and respond to fire calls. We don't know exactly where they'll be located. They may be shifted. 1 month they may be in Livingston, another month they may be in Colonial Park. But what you get for those 10 firefighters is 6 a.m. in the morning till 6 p.m. in the evening coverage of the entire township. Now, there's an alternative plan that was put forth by Chief Fogg. I'd be more than happy to share the plan with you guys if you'd like to publish it, but it utilizes 12 people, 12 full-time career firefighters, and those 12 full-time career firefighters maximizes the use of volunteers on stipends, but it also gives us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a week coverage of somebody available to fight fires. So I asked the general public, I'll ask you gentlemen the question, what makes more sense to you? 10 firefighters that are going to be available from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 12 firefighters are going to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So
as a taxpayer, I'd rather take a little bit more out of what I have to contribute and get the latter, the second.
Yeah.
Joe, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to understand what the need is so that we can apply the resources in the most effective way to give our residents the best possible coverage. Now, there's another proposal that puts drivers of fire trucks at 3 firehouses and then supplements them with more stipend programs. Now, we're not sure if the stipend program is going to work. We don't know why Upper Marion gets 98% participation and Lower Paxton Township gets 48% participation. That's still a question in our mind. So we have to learn these things.
Go ahead,
I think here's the big question that, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, is that a lot of people look at what's been presented so far, and their understanding is that, like I said, if that perfect storm happens, and we're not all, some number of stations out of service, another one that's working on whatever, a car accident, a fire, whatever, they're not available. If we get in those scenarios that there's property and people at risk if something happens because there's just nothing there to respond. So I think you really have to, and you also heard at that meeting, firefighters saying, we're tired, we need help. This has been going on too long. All that kind of stuff's going on. So they want action immediately, and you're conversely going a different direction, trying to get a good understanding of all this. So how?
Maybe not a different direction in Alan's defense, a different speed, maybe. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we're not going as fast as they want us to.
Right.
Because we have somebody chiming in right now. This is a no-brainer issue. Hire the 10 paid firefighters the township needs. This needed to happen yesterday. And what we're trying to get ascertained, and I think I already do understand, Alan, you explained it 10 minutes ago, is why the holdup. Could you go through that again?
But see, Joe, the thing is that what we do in the next 6 weeks or 6 months is going to establish the foundation for how this fire department grows. And we just want to make sure that it's a solid foundation. That's all. I've met with every single fire chief at all 3 stations. We've also had the stations come in and talk to us. I've had emails and letters, and I've had people who don't want me to reveal their name that are on both sides of the issue of hiring these 10 career firefighters. I mean, people that are inside, that are current firefighters, that are explaining to me why the stipend program doesn't work. So there's so many factors at play here, and all we want to do is get it right. Look, right now the fires are getting put out. Nobody's dying, right? I mean, the last death we had was a murder-suicide. They didn't die because of the fire. My point is that our firefighters are amazing men and women, and they're doing amazing work. And yes, that money that's being collected can only be spent on fire, and it will be spent on fire. It'll just be spent in a way that is the most intelligent expenditure. Somebody says we need 10 firefighters, but they don't understand all the issues. All they understand is that they want this issue to go away. This is not a panacea. Again, 2 crews that cover 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. All the Board of Supervisors want to do is, no information was left for us from the previous board as to why 10 was the right number. We talked to Deputy Fire Chief Graham, and he gives us the information about his plan to use these people, but we understand it's only a daylight 6 to 6 program. If there's a fire at 2 a.m. on Saturday, these people won't be on board. So what we're trying to do is just...
Let me ask you this directly. I think this is what some of the public want to know. They're fearful that the way the setup is now, that somehow they're in jeopardy, that fires at some point, if things go wrong, aren't going to have those fires put out, or somehow there's going to be service delayed. We talked about mutual aid, but what can you do to assure people that we're not going to bed at night, hoping to God, praying to God that a fire doesn't break out and we're not able to respond? That people want to know that answer, Alan.
And Bill, I mean, we've already talked about the answer. If people go to bed at night, they're obviously going to bed after 6 p.m. So the point is the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. full-time career firefighters won't make a difference anyways when they go to bed at night. My point is that, again, the Board of Supervisors, with input from firefighters, all of the firefighters, and now we're going to have a public meeting with the public being able to come and talk to us, because again, that's the right way to handle this. Full transparency, let everybody know what this means. And then we will move forward in an orderly manner with the right answer, what we believe to be the right answer. And I can't give you any assurance that we're always going to put out a fire within a certain period of time. I can tell you that past history with our volunteers only, not with full-time career firefighters, we are now meeting the standards. We are more than meeting the standards. Our fire insurance rates are the lowest they can be, and we're putting out fires in a reasonable, measured amount of time. Does that mean a fire won't happen next week at noontime and we don't have anybody to respond? No, it doesn't mean that. I can't promise you that. Nobody can promise that. But I will tell you that these firefighters we have are the most dedicated, most professional, most amazing people we could possibly. And for example, Lincolnstown has this program where guys are at home, but they're on a standby kind of status where they're going to respond to fires on a more quick basis. So everyone's looking at this and everybody's trying to manage this to the best of their ability.
Right.
So, just because we haven't hired the 10 career firefighters, which may or may not be the right number, somebody explained to me how the 10, the people that are complaining we should have hired them yesterday, they don't know what the plans are. How can they say that it's the right? They're mouthing words from a perspective of ignorance. And I'm sorry, that's not. I didn't take an oath to primarily to protect the people of Lower Paxton Township, to only do what is popular and what is, if we wanted Bob Rule, we'd have a true democracy. We wouldn't have a representative republic.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying, I want to put it in very clear terms, is that you're saying to me, you feel comfortable that you have the time to do this in the most thorough way possible and come up with the best solution. And we're not putting people at risk, that even in the worst case scenario, we have mutual aid, other companies to come in and help us out. And that's been going on for years and years and years. The system's stable enough that we have time to sort through this thing. Is that what you're saying?
I do, Bill. And I'm saying we have amazing people managing this on a daily basis to ensure that we have the ability to meet the needs of the fire. Okay.
Now, the next big question is, and you mentioned it, next Tuesday, June 10th, I guess starting at 7:00, part of is the whole meeting going to be devoted to having public comment on this plan we're discussing tonight?
There might be a couple of other things that we do that night, but the primary purpose for that meeting is to hear from the public what they think about the increase in taxes and the increase in the fire bureau that we're anticipate going on. I heard the previous members of the board say we had open budget hearings and anybody could have made any comments they wanted to make.
Right.
But no one made it apparent. No one told the people, look, this is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about this fire issue. And, what we're trying to do is raise the level of people's awareness of not only what this is going to mean from a public safety perspective, which is our primary goal,
Right.
but also from the tax perspective. It's going to increase people's taxes. And it's also going to set the foundation for what our fire bureau looks like in the future. And I'll tell you guys, we have a rich tradition of these volunteers that have paid dearly, and we want to respect them and we want to support them. The whole reason for the MRI report was to support the existing volunteer fire companies, not replace them. I will tell you, there are some people that want to replace them, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, what you talked about taxes. What was the tax increase? Because I'm not aware of it. Again, we don't have.
We're going to hand that information. We're going to give that information to you on the 10th.
Okay.
It's already been out there, but I hate this measurement. But they say that the average value of a home in Lower Paxton Township is $157,000, and the average amount of the tax increase for that $157,000 appraised value of the home, tax value of the home, is somewhere between $80 and $90 a year. Okay.
Okay.
Now. I don't think that's a good measuring stick for either people that have homes that are worth $100,000 or people who have homes that are worth $1 million. And I think that, the value of homes are increasing. And I think with that, the assessed value is going to increase. And I think just people ought to have a measuring stick. And that's what we're going to try to give them so that they understand how these taxes are going to affect them. This is not germane to this conversation. I just want to tell you, when the municipal authority approved a 75-cent per quarter increase in the trash cost, cost of trash. There was all kinds of wailing and gnashing of teeth and complaints about 75 cents a quarter, which, by the way, contractually they were entitled to increase. We didn't approve their rates. Part of the contract allows them to increase their rates based on certain factors, which they took advantage of. But that's 25 cents a month, and people were up in arms about that. So again, we want to do what's right. We want to do what's needed. And ultimately, public safety is the most important criteria we're evaluating. But the people need the opportunity to voice their concerns as well. We must hear from them. That's only fair. That's our duty and our responsibility.
I mean, that's a good move that you're taking. So people can get up there and let people know and find out what's going on. Let's get that.
And honestly, like Joe, everybody may say, "Hey, I don't care what it costs. I want that fire."
Yeah,
I want it.
Well, I'm sure you're going to hear all kinds of opinions.
I mean, when it comes to things like that, I really don't, Alan.
And I'm with you, Joe. I'm with you. I understand that. I do.
I care about my township and my neighbors enough that when it comes to policing and responding to fires, I want to help.
Well, the other thing is,
Joe, I do too. When I took this job, I took an oath. I'm an officer in the military. And that oath means something to me, okay? I didn't take that oath lightly. I swore that I would, and that's all I'm trying to do. I care deeply about my community. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to throw anybody's dream into I'm trying to do what's right for every single, and not just taxpayers. We've got elderly and young people, and we've got people that don't pay taxes, and I represent them too. Right. So I'm trying to do the best I can to represent all 55,000 people. That's where my heart's at.
Right. Good.
Yeah. As far as the taxes, I pay a mortgage right up until recently. I paid a mortgage, and I guess the mortgage went up. I didn't even notice that there was an increase due to the fire tax. I had no idea. I mean, I'm being honest with you. I just paid it. I didn't even. So here's what I'd like to wrap this thing up is, the next step is you had a great meeting and a lot of information shared in May with the fire companies. Now we're going to the public on June 10th, next Tuesday at 7:00 at the township building, going to get their input. After that, what has to be done in your mind to get to that decision point? So that, can you give anyone a framework of what you're running on and how long it's going to take you to get to the finish line on this decision, Alan?
Well, what I'm running on is responsibility, integrity, and commitment to the public. And, I'm one vote of 5.
Right.
So I think I know what I'd like to see, but obviously there are other you have to have a majority at least of 3 supervisors. And
Right.
what I believe the supervisors need to do is to establish objectives, goals, and a vision for the Bureau of Fire. That has never been done. That's the Board of Supervisors' responsibility. Not only was it a responsibility before the MRI report, but the MRI report called it out specifically. Now, in the absence of having that vision and those goals and objectives, our Bureau of Fire, in the face of Director Kashiba and Deputy Fire Chief Graham, they've done a yeoman's job, a great job of coming up with a plan. But they made that plan without the guidance from the Board of Supervisors as to what the vision should be.
Okay.
And so I expect what will happen after we have the public in, supervisors in an executive session, we'll talk about the various options, and
Okay.
we will gain a sense of where the majority of the Board of Supervisors is, and we will give direction to the Bureau of Fire. This is how we want to see you move forward. This is our vision for how the Bureau of Fire will look in the future. And then we will give them permission to hire those career firefighters, whatever the correct number is. And by the way, you may or may not know this, we're buying 3 brand new tankers, one for each fire. And that's going to cost $3.2 million. So that fire tax money that we're collecting, that can go to pay for those those engines as well. I mean, when the fire tax was increased, they said they justified it by saying we're going to have 10 additional firefighters. It's not linked to the 10 additional firefighters. It's linked to the fire. It's linked to the Bureau of Fire. So we're going to spend that money on the Bureau of Fire. So we're not doing anything that's in any way inappropriate. We're just trying to do it in the most correct manner with the strongest foundation built not only for today but also for the future.
Yeah, it looks like you have taken a big interest in that, and I'm just wondering if you see the finish line in view, or you're still
absolutely. Listen, when I was brought on the Board of Supervisors, I anticipated being the young pup who was going to be following along 4 supervisors who were established and experienced. And one by one, for various reasons, they dropped off the Board of Supervisors. And I was left being the most senior member other than Supervisor Thompson, who was elected a year ago. So I meant from the appointees, I was the most senior member.
Can I ask one more question?
That's not a position I wanted. It was thrust upon me. I'm doing the best I can, despite a whole lot of people criticizing me for just trying to do what I think is the right thing to do. But go ahead, Joe.
I don't think you're going to avoid criticism.
I
kind of signed up for it.
I get it. I'm willing to take it. I'm just calling it out. If they knew what I knew, I don't believe they'd be criticizing, because these decisions are hard.
Right. No, I'm not opposing that. So let me ask you this: do you kind of feel you've been around for kind of the transition, from the old board to the new board? For the most part, it's a new board. Just to kind of rehash a little bit what happened within the township over the past year, let's say, give or take. Lost a lot of talent, paid talent. Supervisors are, paid a little bit. There is a paid position, but lost 4 supervisors, director of public works, director of economic development, assistant township manager, IT manager, GIS coordinator, and then again, those 4 supervisors. Do you think the dust has kind of settled on, I'm just going to call it the way I see it and the way the folks in the township see it, a lot of dissension, a lot of dysfunction. Do you think you guys have kind of worked through that and worked past that, where everybody's a lot more, you're always going to have, there's got to be a little bit of give and take. There's got to be a little bit of debate. Okay. There has to be, that's the nature of what you do. But as far as your interaction with the paid employees, with Township Manager Gottschall and your fellow supervisors, do you think you guys are kind of in a healthier way now and ready to move forward that way?
I thought the previous board was in a healthy way, Joe, but of course there were, each of the 4 people who resigned for different reasons. And I'm not going to get into all the reasons. I know many of them.
I'm not asking you for that. I'm seriously not.
No. Unfortunately, most of the public thinks it's a systemic problem, and it's not. There were 4 individual reasons why those people resigned. And I know the reasons why all 4, because I've talked to all 4 of them. I'm not at liberty to reveal the reasons.
Right.
My point is that we have an amazing team today. We had an amazing team before. We have an amazing team now. I think these people are committed to do the right thing for the township. I think when it comes to issues like the Colonial Park Mall, when it comes to the zoning issues, when it comes to how we're going to manage, how we're going to replace some of the talent we lost, what we're going to do with the Fire Bureau, I think we have people that are committed to investigate, to learn, to educate, to build themselves up to the point where they can make an informed and correct decision. It's very easy to make a decision very quickly, and decisions made quickly without understanding oftentimes turn out to be the wrong decisions. And
Well,
I think what we want to do is to make the right decisions moving forward.
Well,
Yes.
the one thing I'll tell you, the one thing we'll do, I'm sure Joe will agree, that we can be from time to time a sounding board for township officials to interact with the public so that you can get some of the information out that you can't in a meeting setting.
Yes.
So we'd be willing to do that, wouldn't you, Joe?
Absolutely. And you know, that's why I just asked that last question. I was being a sounding board for the citizenry, you know, the taxpayers,
right,
or my neighbors. And so, yeah, we would kind of be the person that would not so much represent you or represent them, but, you know, get some questions out, get some information out. And I think that a lot of people I feel better that things moving forward are going to be, you know, the way that we would like to see them be. But I only asked that question, Alan, is because I think a lot of people wanted to know what's the health of, and you answered the question. Thank you.
So look, I seem to be a lightning rod whenever I sat in the chair. So I stepped back, and now Laura's the chair. Okay. Criticism seems to have fallen off. Maybe I'm a bum. You know, someone called me a knucklehead in one of these meetings.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a knucklehead. I was a knucklehead for taking this job, is what I was saying. But
Oh my God.
I'm honest to goodness trying to do the very best that I can.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt anybody. I just want to do what's best for the township. And so we've already done some of those things to try to calm the waters. All we want is to move forward in a positive basis. And I guarantee you that all four of my colleagues, every single member of that board of supervisors wants what's best for the township. I believe
that too.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Yeah. I tell you what, I really appreciate you coming forward. I mean, I hope that this helps clear the air a little bit. It's not going to clear all the air, Alan, but at least it gave you a chance. It gave us a chance to interact on this thing and discuss some of the key points. And can't thank you enough for coming out.
It's been my pleasure, both of you guys. I just want to touch on one thing. Joe read a comment from somebody in the audience who said, this is a no-brainer. It should have been done yesterday.
Yeah.
The point is that individual, whoever it is, and I don't want to know their name, I don't care who they are.
Right.
The point is they don't know everything that we know. So what they're doing is they're giving you a superlative answer about something that they have. You heard about being a mile wide, but an inch deep. They're giving you an answer from an inch deep perspective, not a mile deep perspective. And I hope you would agree with me that the best answers come from understanding of the problem and then creating a proper solution, not just a quick one. And unfortunately, there are too many people that want to just say, do this and do it now. And they don't understand really what they're talking about.
I think you coming out tonight is a stepping stone to help build back trust in our elected officials. I mean, it's because of what we went through, Alan. It's going to take a little bit of time.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand that. And by the way, I heard what you asked Everett. I want to draw the distinction, and Bill, I know you know this answer already. The difference between Laura Kurtz and my being appointed to the board was we were appointed in time to get nominating petitions out to the public and get our name on the ballot for the primary.
Right.
The other two people we appointed because we thought they were the best people for the job. One's an attorney who specifically deals with ethics, and the other is an engineer and understands roads and bridges. And we think that's amazing talent to bring to the Board of Supervisors. They will stand with others to be considered by the Lower Paxton Township Republican Party for their names to be placed on the ballot at some future meeting, whatever
it was June 19th.
But you understand it's the difference, right? We were able to go to the public and get our names on the ballot, and we were voted in the primary election. These other people will never stand for election from the public until November. And that's the difference. And people want to criticize that process all the time, but there is a very different and distinct process and a reason for that. It's the law. That's all I want to say.
Would you let Laura Kurtz know that we'd like to have her on sometime soon?
I think
and by the way, she's a fan of your program. She told me specifically she thought the This and That podcast was a really good. So yeah, I will tell Laura that.
Yeah.
Bill, we have a fan.
Hey, Laura, thank you.
It took 9 episodes, but we have a fan. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, she's talked to me directly.
Okay, all right.
And she does want to come on the show.
All right, cool.
Even before she was chairwoman.
That'd be
chairwoman.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Alan. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, gentlemen. I truly appreciate being part of this program, and you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
Whether you get 10 people online, or you get 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people, you guys are influencers in the township. Your opinion, what you're doing here is important. Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.
Good night. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.
Take care. Okay, Bill. So anyway, we're gonna exit Mr. McCormack out of the green room and send him back home. And
I think he's home already.
yeah, well, I mean, he's not with us anymore. So anyway, that was good. I mean, I think we're never gonna. There's going to be a lot of people that just aren't going to be satisfied. You know, we're trying to ask some of the tougher questions of these, let's say, local politicians, and we had school board members on, and we're kind of trying to. Like I said, we're trying to ask the questions that the community, the taxpayers and others want to have asked. And, you know, and I did that tonight. I had a couple questions that people that I know, they said, hey, would you mind asking them that? We can't control these people's answers. Okay.
No,
I think the best solution for anybody that's kind of has a jag on or has some energy for this, or just wants to see change for whatever reason, if you're not happy with your local government, you can show up and become involved to some degree, right, Bill?
Yep, absolutely. You don't even have to show up. I have not attended in person. I don't think I've been to one meeting this year, but I watch most of them, if not all of them, on YouTube.
Well, to me, that's showing up. I mean, when I say show up, I mean get involved.
But the second part of that is the second part of the equation is I've interacted with the supervisors for one thing or another via email. And for the most part, every one of them they've responded to me. It's whatever I was asking them to do.
Yeah.
So they are responsive.
And I thought that Bradley Gottschall, the township manager, was responsive and transparent. And, you know, and we you know, I kind of felt like we made a friend that night ahead. And I had friends in the community go, you let him off the hook. And, what kind of interviewer are you? Well, you got to ask some more cutting edge questions.
We may have missed out on one question, but yeah.
What did we miss out on, Bill? I don't know.
But I would have, if I had to do over again, I would ask Brad all this stuff. There's a lot of smoke going on at these meetings and fingers pointed directly at him. Just simply ask him, what is going on? Can you give us any insight on what is causing all this furor being pointed at you?
We'll have him on again. We're gonna.
That's what I would ask him. I don't know if it's continuing, but that's the criticism we got. That's what I learned.
Yeah. Okay.
And I tried to take that criticism tonight and ask some questions that were more right to the point. I tried. Right. I don't know if I succeeded.
It was a good show. I thought it was a good show. I thought we asked a lot of good questions, and I thought that Mr. Hamilton was a good guest too. And you know, we're new at this, not at interviewing people, and not at kind of not at local, being part of the local media, but we're new at this show, and we're just getting to know these people a little bit better. And we promise you, the viewers, that we will be here for you. Okay. Right. Tonight, Anthony Cristillo, Jeff Clare, let's see, Cheryl Klingensmith, thank you for tuning in. And, we're going to be the sounding board for you folks to these local politicians, whether it's Board of Supervisors or the school district. And we're going to do the same with them, for them, to you. Right, Bill? Did that come out right? We want to kind of be in the middle.
Ways. Yeah, go both ways.
So anyway, let's once again, let's thank our wonderful This and That, the podcast sponsors, the American Legion, Post 272 on North Mountain Road, Rickabaz Electric, Team PA, AAU basketball, and Be a Hero, Hire a Hero. It's pretty cool, dude. 50% of our sponsors, Bill, are directly tied into our military. How about that?
Yeah, and the one thing about Post 272, you can become, I believe, a social member
I'm
there.
a social member. Okay. Let me tell you something, Bill. The food's pretty darn good there.
Okay.
It really is. Yeah. And I'm kind of a food snob because I was involved in the food industry for
Right.
decades. And so I like good food, like not unlike anybody else. Most people do, but I go there and I leave and think, man, that was a good meal. You know, I just had a really good meal.
Real quickly, what's it cost to be a social member? Do you know?
$50 a year.
Okay.
Very, very reasonable. And it's, you know what, if I don't go there one time, I feel like it's a good contribution to my local American.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's about it.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. How many people did we have? With over 10, you say?
Overall, do you want to know overall?
Well, what did we have more than 10 at one time?
I don't think we did.
Oh, okay.
That 10, when I told you that early in the show,
yeah,
that was a total of 10.
Oh, jeez.
I think
you got me all excited for nothing.
We have not arrived, Bill. We have not arrived. Total of 46 views, though.
Okay.
I mean, some people could have watched for 3 seconds. Other people could have watched for the whole show.
Yeah, but over the next few days, it's going to go into the hundreds.
We are growing.
Yeah.
I hate it's an overused term, but we're growing organically. We're growing the way we're supposed to grow, adding a few viewers at a time, 5 here, a dozen there, you know, and Legalstown Gazette Sports. We're now in our 9th year, and my gosh, that has gone from a handful of viewers to into the thousands now for a lot of the shows that we do.
All I can on a good night basis, all I can tell you is that Biff and Walter want to give me a hug after I get off the air here because it's a tremendous show.
Go hug it up, buddy. Thanks for viewing, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.